Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome. My name is Jingles, and this is Crusader Kings II. Crusader Kings II is a strategy game, a grand strategy game, developed by Paradox Development Studio, as it says quite clearly here. It is a grand strategy game, much like their other titles, Europa Universalis 3 and Hearts of Iron. I've already done Hearts of Iron videos on this channel, so you might be familiar with it. If you're completely new to the channel, on the other hand, welcome! I did some Hearts of Iron videos a while ago. It was cool, it was fun. Now, I've had a lot of requests to do Crusader Kings 2, actually, for quite a while now, and in the past, I've always replied by essentially saying I love Crusader Kings 2. I do, but I am too terrible at it to actually do a proper Let's Play of it. Now, I still am pretty terrible at it, really, I think, compared to some people who play this game. However, I am confident enough, at least, in my knowledge of the game and the way it works now to do a proper video series on it. And so that's what we're going to do. It's just going to be the vanilla game, as you can see, just vanilla, straightforward Crusader Kings 2 with a few of the DLCs installed. I am aware that there is an excellent Game of Thrones mod for this game, and I am also aware that there is an upcoming, that is to say, Elder Scrolls mod. And before anyone goes and mentions them, because I know they will, no, I'm not going to play them just yet, and here is why. One, I'm not going to be playing the Game of Thrones mod because I'm not good enough at the game yet, and the Crusader Kings 2 Game of Thrones mod, in addition to being actually quite tricky, it actually adds in a whole bunch of new gameplay elements, and I don't really fancy grappling with brand new gameplay elements while I'm still struggling with the base game. Now, this is also true of the Elder Scrolls mod, but in addition to that, the Elder Scrolls mod is still very, very buggy. It's still very much in beta. I've played a bit of it, I've enjoyed some of it. I think it's a great concept, it's got a lot of potential, but it's just not ready for a Let's Play yet. We tried this once before with Morrow Oblivion, and it ended in disaster. So, there we go. That's why I'm not doing those. So anyway, I've recorded this. This is the third time I've recorded this intro video, I should point out. So, I'm conscious of waffling on too much. So you know what? We'll just get on. Go ahead and get started with this. Now, this is a lot like other Paradox strategy games, as I've said already. However, there is one notable difference. In that, in those games you play as a country, typically. You will pick a country like England, or France, or Germany, and you'll play as them over the course of the game. However, in this game, you don't do that, really. Rather than pick a country, you pick a character. Like here, King Harold II of England, for instance, of House Godwin. Now, that's an interesting thing, because while this game is very much a strategy game, it also introduces, as a result of this, lots and lots and lots of RPG elements. And so, it's no secret that I have a lot of RPG fans on my channel, and I have a lot of strategy fans. And this game, above all games, is almost a perfect marriage of the two genres. In fact, it very much reminds me of a game from years ago called King of Dragon Pass, which is an excellent game. Not as prepped, well polished as this, but it's also pretty damn awesome, and this game is clearly quite inspired by it in many ways. So that's one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much, because it's that perfect blend of my two favourite gaming genres, essentially. So anyway, you play as a character, as I've said. That's the most important thing to know about this, but more than that, you play as a dynasty. So when, say, King Harold II of England here inevitably dies, and is taken over by the kingdom is taken over by his son, the then prince, who becomes king, you then play as the prince, the guy's heir, provided he is of House Godwin. So, if the throne is inherited by someone not of House Godwin, the game will end because you were playing as the Godwins, essentially. That's important to note. You know, lineage and stuff is like the most important thing in this game. If you screw up your lineage and you lose your titles to a foreign lord, then you're pretty much screwed, and that's the game over for you, because the game will end once you no longer have any land to your name, essentially. So that means either you have a guy with no heirs who dies, or you have all your lands and titles stripped from you. So that is the basic gist of it, essentially. So as you can see, we can click around here, and this is the other important thing. You don't In addition to playing as a character, in addition to playing as a dynasty, you don't just play as, like, say, the King of England, or just the King of France, or just the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. You can play as anyone. So you can play as one of his loyal subjects, or disloyal subjects, as the case may be. For example, I could, if I wanted to, play as Duke Gurth I of East Anglia. Because you have 3 levels of... This game's all about the feudal system, you know. There is a pecking order built into the game, essentially. Now, while you have little minor titles like barons and lord mayors and bishops and things like that, the main playable titles are divided up between... You know, I think there's 5 levels. 5? Is that right? 4 or 5? No, there's 4 levels. Sorry, I can't count today. Sorry. Bedford dumbass today, I'm sorry, I'm just tired. There's 4 levels. Basically, the way it works, at the top of the food chain, the feudal food chain, you have the emperors. So you have, say, the Emperor of the Byzantine Empire over here. Basileus Constantinos X of the Byzantine Empire. And you have the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire over here. Heinrich III, for instance, this fellow over here. There are also other potential empires to be that can be formed. For example, I believe you can, if you manage to conquer all of Britain and Ireland, you can proclaim yourself the Emperor of Britannia, if you so wish. Now, below them, at least in theory, you have kings. Say the King of England, the King of France, the King of Scotland, etc., etc. Below kings, you have dukes, who we can see on here. There we go. So we have the Duke of York here. And we have the Duke of Mercia here, and the Duke of East Anglia, and the Duke of Kent. So these guys are the next guys down on the next rung down the ladder from kings, and they answer directly to the kings. Now below them you have counts, who are the tiny guys at the bottom, essentially, who answer to the dukes, who then answer to the kings, and so on and so forth. We're going to be playing as a count in this game, because I like to start at the bottom. I like to start with a sort of clean slate, if you will, and climb up the ladder of feudal society and try and get to the top, essentially, and basically become the king. We're going to be playing as an English count, who, officially speaking, is called an earl, actually, now I think about it, but it's the same thing at the end of the day. And we're going to be playing at a very specific date as well. As you can see, currently here, the date is set to 1066, the 15th of September, just before or after, I believe, the Battle of Stamford Bridge. So the Anglo-Saxon King Godwin's still on the throne at this point. But if we were to advance to 1076, William the Conqueror is now the King of England, and everything looks very, very different. As you can see, a lot of borders changed around when I did that. Now, this game has a accurate depiction of Europe for every day, month, and year of the Middle Ages. It's quite fascinating the way they managed to do that. We're going to skip through the decades for a while here, until we get to the year 1199. There's a very specific reason for that, which I'll explain momentarily. We're going to go to April 1199. Why April 1199? Well, the reason for that is Richard the Lionheart of England has just died, and he's been succeeded by King John, who's a bit of a useless bastard, as history proved, I think, in the end, really. It's an interesting period of English history. Primarily, I think because most people know of it as the time during which the legend of Robin Hood sprouted up. You know, bad King John, Sheriff of Nottingham, all that bollocks. Yeah, this is where it's all from, essentially. I believe Nottingham is around here somewhere. I don't think it's a province, but it is a city in the game. But Nottingham doesn't have a sheriff; it has a mayor. But anyway, in any case, that's it. This is the kind of possibly one of the most well-known periods of English history, and it's one of the reasons I like it so much. But it's also a good start because, as I said, King John's a bit of a useless bastard, and that means if you're playing as one of his vassals, you'll have an easier time of it because you won't. King John doesn't have very much crown authority, and his vassals are all very rebellious. So there's plenty of opportunities for civil wars and land grabbing and all sorts of lovely things like that, which will allow us to become more powerful. If we started off under William the Conqueror, on the other hand, he's a big, strong king. He knows his shit. He knows what he's doing. Which means that we would have a hard time kind of trying to depose him and take the throne for ourselves, for instance. So that's why we're starting with King John of the House Plantagenet, I believe. Yep, there we go, Plantagenet. That's his dynasty. And we're going to start off as a count, as I said. So the count of where, though, however? Well, I went over this when I previously recorded this, and I decided I'm going to pick a kind of coastal province, somewhere that's out of the way and it's not going to be necessarily a big target. Now, I'm going to go with Northumberland, because the county of Northumberland at the moment actually consists of both Northumberland and Cumberland, which means we get 2 provinces for free, an extra one for free essentially, whereas if we were to play as the Count of Westmoreland, we'd only get 1 province. Except there is no Count of Westmoreland because that's apparently the King's territory there, but anyway. So you could also play as perhaps the... You know what, actually, screw that. I've just realised that the expansion opportunities for the Count of Northumberland are terrible. And there's also another downside of playing as Northumberland, in that if we ever end up at war with Scotland, it's very likely the Scots will come over and burn all my shit down. Which I wouldn't actually like to happen. So we're going to play instead as what would be the Duke of York, but is actually the the Earl of Derby. Actually, for some reason, the Earl of Derby controls York in this particular point in history. So there you go. We're going to play as the Earl of Derby, which at present is Earl William de Ferrers or whatever. There are a lot of French-sounding names in England because a lot of the aristocracy at this point is Norman in origin, so obviously they have French names. So we're going to play as the Earl of Derby. Why? Because... Let's go down to counts. There we go. Because he controls York and Derby, which are 2 very, very good provinces, especially York. So we're going to be playing as him. So we could play as William of Derby if we wanted to, but we're not going to, because I've no idea what William of Derby is like, what traits he has, or any of that kind of stuff. He could be an inbred dwarf for all I know, because it doesn't actually tell you on the screen, unfortunately. It just gives you an approximation of difficulty, which generally speaking means bugger all anyway. So we're going to be playing as the Earl of Derby. We're not going to be playing as this guy, and the way that works is you use the ruler designer. Now, unfortunately, because Paradox are very stingy with their DLC when it comes to this game, if you want the ruler designer, sadly you have to download it separately as DLC. But generally speaking, I feel it's worth it, so there we go. So basically we're going to create a brand new character with a brand new house. So forget the House of de Ferrers, we're going to make a new house. He's going to be English. We could pick another ethnicity if we wanted. You could make him a Frankish, or Norman, or Italian, or Roman even. But we're not going to, because if we did, that would make people hate him because he would be a foreigner, because everyone else around here is English. So it becomes a particular problem earlier in the game when you're playing as England, because it's very much divided up between Anglo-Saxons and Normans, and there's obviously a lot of tension as a result of that. But anyway, we're going to be playing as an English person. You can customize his appearance here. I'm not going to waste too much time on this, quite honestly. Yeah. Bit of a grim look. That's bloody fine. We'll give him a different hairstyle. This looks cool. Needs a beard of some description. Yeah, that'll do. It's quite good. Cheeks, ears, neck, what? I don't even know. Not going to be ginger. That'll do. So, he's fairly grim looking, our Earl to be, but that's fine. Now we get to customise our coat of arms. This will be the coat of arms of our house, and we'll be stuck with it for the rest of the game. So, I'm not going to waste too much time on this as well. It's just cosmetic bollocks at the end of the day, but even so, I'm very particular about this sort of thing. Let's go with a background like that. We'll make one half of it black, one half of it white. That seems pretty cool, yeah. And the emblem, there's one in particular I'm looking for. Where are you? There we go, a red dragon. I think that looks friggin' badass. Maybe if we made the top black and the bottom. We could be House Targaryen if we wanted to. Now I think about it. No, let's make the bottom of it all white. Yeah, that looks much better. Yeah, or maybe... Oh god, I can't waste time on this. I really mustn't waste time on this, but I love mucking about and trying to make a cool coat of arms on this game. I really do. What can I say? It's fun! that looks good. We'll go with that. Alright, so there we go. That's our coat of arms. Looks kind of badass. Red dragon, black and white background. His name can be Reginald. Brilliant. Reginald. House Fitzpeter? No. De Montague. Tell you what, I'll be back in a second. I'm going to go through this randomized name thing until we come up with something cool. So, BRB. We have a winner, Reginald Randolph of House Randolph. Cracking. Sounds good to me. Right, okay, so this is the most important part of character creation. As you can see, he's age 16 at present. Now, you have a bunch of stats here. I'll explain in detail later on what they all do. However, suffice to say, diplomacy is probably the most important one, so I'm going to focus on that. Now, we have a bunch of stats here, and we can increase them with these arrows, or decrease them if we want to. Now, every time we increase a stat, he gains a year in age. So if I were to increase his diplomacy to, say, 10, he's now 21 instead of 16. And that's basically the way it works. You give your character an education, you give him traits, you can give him stat changes and things like that, you can give him sons and daughters, you can make him married, whatever. But the more you do that, the older he gets. And the older he gets, the less time you get to play with him, and the more likely he is to not produce heirs and things like that. So basically what you need to do is strike the right balance between having good stats and making him young. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by picking his education. I'm going to give him the charismatic negotiator, which is a diplomacy-based education. So as you can see, his effective diplomacy has gone up to 11 now, which is pretty good as a starting point. I tend not to adjust these manually. I use traits instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a trait to begin with. Now, the first most important one I feel to go with is where is it? Genius. This character is blessed with a towering intellect, or whatever the description is. I've lost it now. This character is blessed with a towering intellect, which gives him a whole crap load of bonuses to his different stats. So you can see it's all gone up now. His diplomacy is 16, martial 9, stewardship 10, 11, 11, blah, 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 blah. Right, basically. Now, the important thing about... two important things about Genius. One, that it has a big cost in age. As you can see, his age is now shot up to 54. He's not looking so good, is he? Now, to counterbalance that, we need to give him some negative traits, which will make him younger. So we're going to do that in a second. The other thing to remember about Genius is it's a trait that is genetic, which means that it has a chance of being passed down to your children, and that's very, very important in this game. Choosing which traits you have and which ones you want to pass along to your kids. Because inevitably you're going to be playing as them at some point, and you don't want them to be a complete laughingstock and gibbering idiot, because he's going to be in charge of your entire bloody realm at one point or another. So basically we need to pick some negative traits to balance this out, because there's no way I'm playing as a 54-year-old character who is single and has no heirs. So we need to pick some negative traits. Now, there's a lot to choose from. Some of them are pretty terrible, like leper, has great pox, etc., etc. To begin with, I'm going to pick wounded. Why am I going to pick wounded? Well, it's actually a temporary trait. You can recover from wounds. It gives him a -1 point, -1 martial, -1 health, but hopefully it won't last for too long. I'm also going to give him a hunchback, which, funnily enough, it gives him martial -1 as well. But funnily enough, being a hunchback wasn't that uncommon back in the day. King Richard III, famously in Shakespeare's play Richard III, was, ridiculed, and he was made into this giant villain because Shakespeare was working for the Tudors, who hated the Plantagenets and so on and so forth. But one of the things that they made fun of his character was that Shakespeare wrote Richard III as having a hunchback. And for 8 years, historians figured that he didn't really have a hunchback because there was no historical evidence for it, until they dug up Richard's corpse not long ago, because they found him buried under a car park of all places. It's a funny story, but I won't go into it now. And it turned out the guy really did have a hunchback. But the thing was, a hunchback is not... You dispel any thoughts you might have had of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, because that's bollocks. A hunchback is actually a little bit more strange than that. It's basically your spine is kind of contorted in such a way that makes you hunched slightly. But the thing about it was, and especially in Richard III's case, is that it's actually quite easily concealed. The only time you would ever notice that someone actually has a hunchback is if they're literally naked, or wearing a very thin shirt. So there you go. Bit of interesting medieval trivia for you, anyway. But so yeah, we're going to pick hunchback. We're going to pick wounded. So he's in a bit of a bad state, this poor bugger. But his age has now gone back down to 25, which is good. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to pick a few more. I'm going to pick... Where is it? Where is it? Patient. Because Patient actually knocks a year off, even though it's actually it gives you a bunch of bonuses. So that's a cool one to have. And, let's see, what else can we have? Strong. No, that's not worth it at all. One more might be nice. He's age 24, which, you know, might be worth settling for, in fact. Yeah, I think we might go with that. And I will boost his... Yeah, there we go. I'll boost his martial slightly. So that's up to 10, which is not reasonably bad. You know what, he's age 27 now. You could do with another negative trait. Sorry, mate! It's time to screw around with his gene pool a little bit further. Deceitful. Maybe. I'm more inclined to go with glutton, though. Yeah, there we go. Stewardship -2. And he's a glutton, so basically the church doesn't like him very much, and because he eats a heck of a lot. You know, so there we go. It's not too negative a trait, but it gives you a nice year negative bonus thing. The only problem with being a glutton is some people won't like you for being a glutton because they are quite moderate in their tastes. This guy is the opposite of moderate. He is a gourmand of sorts. Now, that's knocked his age back down to 16, which is going to allow me to tweak his abilities here a slight bit more. Give him a slight boost to diplomacy, martial, stewardship in particular, as well as intrigue. That brings him up to age 25. He's got a learning skill of 12, intrigue of 14, stewardship of 14, martial of 12, and diplomacy of 18. Diplomacy, I believe, is, in my opinion, the most important of all the skills, so I always put loads into that to begin with. Health still stays the same, fertility stays the same. I think it's slightly increased because, yeah, he's a charismatic negotiator. He doesn't have any sons or daughters, and he's not married, but that can be pretty easily reconciled. So anyway, there we go. This is Earl Reginald of Derby, of House Randolph, and that's his coat of arms. And he's going to be the Earl of Derby / the Earl of York. I might change him to the Earl of York. I can do that if I want. Let's click finish because he's done. There we go. There he is. Sat there. The difficulty bar is quite high, but that's deceptively high. Sometimes in this game it's actually easier to start off quite low down on the feudal ladder. In fact, generally speaking, it's easier to start off as a count than it is to start off as a king in many ways. So, especially someone like King John, who's currently in charge of England right now. So anyway, this concludes basically the introductory video. I'll be happy to answer any questions people have in the comments, anything I might have missed, because I've been trying to keep this as brief as I possibly can. And in the next video, the Let's Play will start in earnest with Earl Reginald here. I'm going to click play now because it won't save his, you know, the customized ruler unless I click play and then save it, but wait for it. There we go. Here we are in the Kingdom of England. The game is currently paused. It's the 13th of April, 1199. Earl Reginald's apparently wearing a suit of armour for some reason. More power to him. And this is where he lives, here in Derby, specifically in his castle in the city of Derby. He also happens to rule over the city of Chesterfield, about Bishopric of Burton, and he rules over this crap too. But anyway, we'll get into that next episode. For now, this is the introductory video concluded. I'm glad you stuck around to watch, because it's kind of necessary with Paradox games, I feel, to give some sort of introduction to the whole thing. Hopefully you weren't bored to tears, and very soon I shall see you all again with the first proper episode of Let's Play Crusader Kings II. So, thanks very much for watching, everybody, and ta-ta for now, my lords and ladies.